Formation, Faith, and Culture, a theological conversation. We're back, episode number 2. And today, in our last episode, I should say, we talked about the tension many people feel between calling and preparation. And today, we're taking that conversation out of a sense of theory, and we're bringing it into real life. Once again, my name is Tyler Medley. I'm from Trinity Bible College and Graduate School. I'm your host. And today, I'm joined by not only, I would call him one of my best friends, and he is also our first graduate from the Trinity Graduate School. So with that being said, Matt, welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast. This is Matt Payne. I should have just introduced your name better there. So, this is Matt Payne, everyone. He is our first graduate from the Trinity Bible College and Graduate School, grad school, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, Matt, today we're going to talk honestly about calling, uncertainty, growth, what it looked like to take a next step, just because obviously there was a place and time in your life when you had to take this step and you had to take this place of your life to say, this is where I'm going. So with that being said, why don't you just tell us a little about yourself? Where are you from? What did your life and ministry look like before grad school?
Yeah, that's a great question. Glad to be here, Tyler. Thanks for the invitation. Absolutely. I would also consider Tyler one of my best friends in the whole world. So
Thank you, man.
Love you, bro.
That.
So grew up in Oklahoma, sort of suburban Oklahoma. Grew up in a great rural church for most of sort of my life when I was understanding what was going on in junior high and high school. So, and that rural church led to a lot of opportunities for me to get involved, specifically with music. I come from a very musical family on both sides. So I was involved with music and worship and running sound and all that stuff from a really early age. Right. So just the opportunities in a small church to get involved quickly really sort of shaped my formation as a young person. Not just coming and necessarily sitting on a pew, but right. Parents are always there early for church. Next thing you know, they're asking me to do stuff. Next thing you know, I'm picking up a bass guitar and playing on Sundays every Sunday. And next thing you know, just really getting an appetite for that type of ministry. Yeah. And so much so that it changed my original career plan, which was military. My dad was in the military. He's a career, now retired police officer. So I recognized that God was breathing on ministry for me in high school. Sure. And was starting to change the trajectory of my life away from my plan was Navy career into ministry. So out of that, went to a big public school, University of Central Oklahoma, studied English. Not sure why still. I joke that, I know where the commas go, but I'm not sure what else the English degree got me,
Right, yeah.
And then here I ended up teaching English, like Comp 1 and Comp 2 were the first two things I taught here. So anyways, the Lord used it. But yeah, after that, I came on as a worship pastor at a large church in Oklahoma City, which was a great experience because we really learned how to administrate things well. Yeah. I got opportunities because people, had moved on from their positions, and I went from literally one day making interns, or I was an intern, not making interns, but I was running copies and burning CDs for the worship team. Wow. I was the worship pastor at one of the campuses, their Norman campus, 2 or 3 miles from OU Stadium, in a storefront with 100 people on Sunday morning wearing a green suit, leading worship, so nervous that I literally wrapped my knuckles on the pulpit to the point where I've still got the scar actually, to where I look down and I'm bleeding all over the pulpit because I was so nervous. Yeah. And that was the second time I'd ever led worship. Wow. Which is crazy. And they're like, Matt, we need you to go to Norman and stabilize the thing. So I was like, okay, happy to be here, kind of thing. So that led to becoming the worship pastor there for several years, moving back to a different campus, youth worship pastor, took over back at Oklahoma City as Sunday night kind of worship pastor, and then got married to Maggie, of course, my amazing wife, who's also a worship pastor. And then God called us to Aberdeen, South Dakota. I was walking through the apartment, and I said, I feel like the Lord just told me that we're supposed to move to Aberdeen and serve Drew and Christy Becker at Freedom Church. And that was wild, just because I was ready to get out of leading worship. And anyways, long story short, so that got me to the area. That was 2012, same year that the Alexanders moved here, interestingly. And then within 2 years, they were starting the graduate program. And yeah, so that's kind of my background of ministry and just kind of helping out and following the Lord as best we can and all
That's
sorts of stuff. So
that's an incredible shift, right? When you go from like learning how to lead worship at a very large church in Oklahoma City to Aberdeen, South Dakota. You know, I think there's populations like 40,000, 38,000, something like that.
yeah,
Compared to
something
Greater
like that.
Oklahoma City is, 500,000, maybe more.
Yeah,
Can you briefly? I just have a quick fun. Like I gotta know. What
yeah.
was the biggest culture shock moment for you, going from Oklahoma City to Aberdeen, South Dakota?
The biggest culture shock was we had uh, probably music wise.
Okay.
Oklahoma City, I mean, honestly, in the South and in megachurch kind of culture, it was in an unhealthy way, in my opinion. We didn't talk about it, but it was competitive.
Sure.
So we tried to have a great band, not even because we wanted to have a better band than anybody else, but it was just very performancy.
Right. Yeah.
And so I come to Aberdeen, and we've got 125 people, 150 people in the church.
Yeah.
We had access to good musicians because there were a lot of Trinity students that were coming to the church at the time. But it was such a change culture-wise, going from a large evangelistic church
Sure.
that really emphasized excellence, performance, to a much more prophetic church at Freedom that emphasized really ministering to the Lord and focusing on what the Holy Spirit wanted to do in any given moment. And so our hearts were already moving that direction when we were in Oklahoma City, but it sort of gave full expression to that when we went to Freedom and said, hey, this is a place that wants to honor the Holy Spirit by being sensitive
Right.
in a biblically responsible manner, but being sensitive to what the Spirit wants to do genuinely.
Yeah.
And so it was a big culture shock in a good way.
Yeah.
And then challenging and musically challenging and stuff like that. And I remember I had a dream. I opened up my bass case, and my bass was broken in two. And I feel like the Lord was saying, like, hey, you've gotten, in a way, too much of your identity from this thing for all these years.
Wow.
And I'm resetting your identity partially through your time here at Freedom, to say it's not just about being a musician or a good musician, but it's actually, why don't you step into your identity in Christ ultimately?
Wow. Yeah.
So it was a culturally big transition. I mean, urban Oklahoma City to rural South Dakota at the time.
South Dakota, yeah. So tell me about, like, when was there ever a moment in that journey where you felt uncertain and just, maybe not necessarily, just maybe specific instance that stuck out and said, I feel uncertain about just my leadership, like where I'm going, what I'm doing. Where did that kind of lead from or stem from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I transitioned to Aberdeen, I took on the role of associate pastor. And then I was transitioning from a worship pastor that was highly specialized in an urban megachurch, where all I had to do basically was don't do anything stupid, make sure the choir doesn't do anything stupid, and show up on Sundays and lead worship,
Right.
to now I'm on the preaching team. Now I'm helping set vision.
Wow.
Eventually, we became the small group pastors, and we helped out in church plant. Like, we planted a church in Webster, which is east, 40, 50 miles. So the responsibilities completely shifted.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I've been around preaching and teaching my whole life, but I've never been trained in homiletics, exegesis, any of that stuff.
Right.
I've been around church stuff my whole life, coming from ministry families, which I wouldn't trade for anything. But I don't know how to effectively disciple people. So that started, and I like to learn. I think I'm a learner naturally. Like, I'm drawn to. If I don't know something, I'm going to go read a book about it. I'm going to find an expert,
Yeah.
be like, sit with them, and be like, hey, what are the 5 things I need to know about this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was, as I was transitioning roles, I became acutely aware of my lack of technical ability.
Right.
To be frank with you.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so it was.
And did that lead to a moment of feeling stuck? Like, did you ever feel stuck? Just like, I don't, because I mean, if we're naturally learners, like, I can resonate with that.
Yeah.
And understanding, sometimes I just go down the rabbit hole, and I just figure out that, like, man, I got to learn everything I can learn about this particular subject because I know nothing.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, at least for me, that gets birthed out of a place of, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, like, did you ever feel stuck?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had a great mentor in Pastor Drew. Uh, so that made a huge difference. And I would say that when I started to feel stuck, I knew that it was time to seek out a new relationship, a new book to read, a new YouTube channel to watch, whatever
Sure.
that looked like. And ultimately, yeah, I think that that's probably what helped me make the decision to get my master's degree
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 30 to 50% of the reason that
Yeah.
I did the degree here, you know?
Yeah. Was there a pivotal moment, like when you reflect on that season of your life? Was there like a defining moment where just like this light bulb of like, I realized that moment that I needed to grow? Whether that's the new book, the new podcast, the new audio book, the new, relationship, whatever it looked like. Was there like a definitive moment where you're like, I got to change something?
You know, I think probably for my personality type, there's a nagging alarm bell that's going off in the back of my head
Yeah.
all the time
Yeah. Yeah.
saying what you don't know is going to kill you.
Yeah.
So I would say I can't point to a moment in time that I knew that I needed to do something drastic, or do something, I can make a considerable step in a specific direction. But I would say that have felt that, especially since moving to Aberdeen, I have felt that a constant drip, so to speak,
Yeah.
in the back of my mind of like, I have to keep growing.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
That's really good.
grow or die. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. So what I really like that because I think we get complacent sometimes, or I think we get stuck in this loop of, I mean, even in leadership. My dad was a pastor. I grew up in a pastoral home, but just understanding that, like, this is what you do. You prep the sermon, you preach the sermon, you go to do hospital visits, you minister to people, and you just kind of keep getting stuck in this circle. And there's like maybe never a dawning realization moment.
mm.
Or some people on the other end of their personality say, yeah, like I feel that continual drip. So to keep pushing that thought process of saying, where exactly did you make that decision to say, I'm going to pursue grad school?
I remember Jordy Nunez, who'd become a good friend,
Yeah.
and it was a good
Yeah.
friend of yours.
Yeah.
You guys play ball together?
No, I missed him by like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jordy and Elizabeth went to Freedom, and Elizabeth was on our worship team, and we'd gotten to be really close friends with Jordy and Elizabeth. Jordy was the VP of, it was called Student Services back then,
Yeah.
which was oversaw enrollment and whatever else Dr. Paul decided to put on his plate, right? So Jordy was the VP of Student Services. Jordy was getting ready to start the master's degree in 2014, the first class, and there were a lot of other people that were getting ready to start that first cohort. And the graduate school was it was brand new. I think I heard Dr. Paul preach one time, but I'd never spent any time with him. I don't think I'd ever met Dr. Carroll. So yeah. So what really motivated it is they were trying to get people to do the program.
Yeah.
And they were it was affordable because we didn't make great money in Aberdeen. It was an affordable opportunity to do something that had been in my heart for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point actually when I was in Oklahoma City when I said I could see myself at a college at some point.
Yeah.
Because I remember how much I enjoyed college the first time. For a while, I didn't do great. That's a whole other story, actually. Well, maybe the second half of the story. So we'll say the first half of the story was it was a great opportunity right up the road to be with people that I knew a little bit and I respected.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I just said it'll probably never be cheaper to do this.
Yeah.
I'm 40 miles. Aberdeen's 40 miles from Ellendale. I could drive up, stay with Jordy, and go to these classes, and I just knew that it was a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's honestly probably half of the reason that I did it. Because it was there, it was new, wanted to do it, wanted to do something different, was feeling it, was ready to have a different experience. Okay, and the other half was totally selfish. Okay, so when I went to UCO, my undergraduate, I had an academic scholarship that was great. It paid for 95% of my school.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't. I didn't handle it well. Like I lost my scholarship. I had to sit down with my mom and dad. Dad has an associate's degree in criminal justice. My mom never went to college. So, and sit down and say, hey, first generation college student, had a full ride academic scholarship. I haven't been going to classes or doing my homework. I lost my scholarship. I'm going to quit and join the Navy, enlist. And my dad goes, no, you're not. You're going to finish. And then the church that I was working with, the church that I ended up working with, Victory, at the time I was interning, they said, we're not going to hire you unless you finish your college degree.
Oh, my word.
And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to be basically a bum musician and just skate by on that sort of thing like that. But so the humiliation of losing my scholarship, of failing as a young man, became probably one of the most powerful gifts that I've ever received in my entire life.
Wow.
Of having to look myself in the mirror and say, I had a great opportunity, I blew it. There's no second chances. Yeah. And now I have to finish, I have to pay for it. Yeah. And I have to find a motivation to get through college, which my motivation was to get a job at the church I was working at. Wow. So there was a whole 50, I'd say a full 50% of the reason I decided to do graduate school was because I wanted to redeem my educational experience.
That's really good.
And say, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I've got the horsepower to be successful in college.
Absolutely.
I've never doubted that. I have what it takes to be successful in the classroom. Okay, that's not the issue. The issue for me was character, and the issue for me was motivation. Wow. So going back and doing my graduate degree was honestly a bit of a redemption story in my own heart. And saying, I want to do it again. I want to do it the right way.
Wow.
And I did.
That's really good. I appreciate what you said there about understanding that that there was a character issue inside of us. I think oftentimes we lose this perception of what it means to stop and actually look ourselves in the mirror and say, you got to fix something here. You know. So I mean, wow, that's I don't guess I've ever heard that take of your story, so I appreciate you sharing that. Was there ever a moment that, like, something almost stopped you from not pursuing that? Or did you just know that you knew and you were just going to go do it?
No, once I started, I arranged my life in such a way that I would finish.
Right. Yeah. No.
And I was terrified, too. I actually took my transcripts from my undergraduate school and I pinned them on my bulletin board in my office.
Really?
Yeah, all the D's and F's and C's from University of Central Oklahoma, and I would see them every single day when I'd sit down to work on my master's program.
Wow. And like, was that the major fear that you had? Was just like, I don't want to repeat this? Or were there other fears and doubts that you had that just kind of like kept pushing you?
I think I was probably scared that I didn't have the maturity to handle it. I felt like I could do the work, but just saying, am I going to let myself get distracted or bored or find a reason to not read my books or do my homework or whatever, and make excuses for different things or stuff like that. So I was scared that my character really hadn't grown to the point that it needed to be. And so, like, you know, graduate school was a great mirror for me to sort of gauge where I was just as a man. Yeah. In a way.
Where exactly, or what did you find difficult about that process? Like, you're in grad school, you've got these nagging thoughts, you've got this, you know, transcript mounted on your board, you know, and what was difficult and like what challenged you the most? And maybe that leads into another part of the conversation about the rigor of the grad school, but just personally, you know, break that down for me a little bit more if you can.
What challenged me the most in the graduate program itself?
Or just like, what was difficult about that process? Because the reason I'm asking that is because, like, there's a really good portion of, like, seeing your heart and saying, hey, like, I've feared that I lacked the maturity, that I lacked the character development. And what part of that, did that make things more difficult at times? Or did that, like, how did that accentuate your process?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I've ever thought about it in those terms exactly. Um, I don't know if this is going to answer your question exactly, but huh, I remember moments of recognizing what a privilege it was to do it. I remember moments of saying when I didn't feel like doing the work,
Yeah.
which was really the overarching theme of my undergraduate. I don't feel like doing this. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Was saying like, hey, nobody's got a gun to your head right now. You choose to do this. This is a privilege. There are people that would move heaven and earth to be able to do this, and you're doing it in a really, really favorable thing. So maybe the overwhelming sense was gratitude,
Mm.
gratitude to have a second chance, gratitude to have the opportunity, gratitude to have favorable conditions where I could work on things that were being immediately applicable in my ministry position. And I just had a sense that the stars were aligned, that the Lord was really breathing on it, and I'll never forget that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I don't know. That's what comes to mind when you ask that question. But
Well, that's really good. I appreciate your transparency on that.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
that's such a tough place to be because I mean that there's a reflection even in my own life of understanding that path.
Mm.
You know, but ultimately every journey is their own,
Mm-hmm.
and it led you to this place. It led us to this place, I should say. And I don't know, was there to fast forward a little bit? Not really fast forward, but let's jump ahead to the program itself.
Yeah.
Was there a moment like that things started to click when you started taking your classes? You're in ministry because you were still in ministry, correct? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, like, was there a moment when what you were learning in these classes started to click over here and say, okay, like the integration of education and or like formation and information, like you're seeing that integration of knowledge. Was there a moment like it was like, oh man, that makes sense now?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. When so part of the graduate experience is you're not just learning the material, but you're learning how to be a student.
Mm,
So you're learning how to think at a graduate level,
sure.
think critically, write critically, hold a thought for a 20-page paper, ultimately a 50, 55-page paper from a thesis.
Yeah.
So there is a sort of a background, which in some ways is just as formational as the content that you read, to be honest with you, of saying I'm being shaped as a different person here in this whole process. So I would say it started to click maybe at the halfway point. So you feel like you're so, at least, okay, I say you. I mean, I felt like I was swimming, like doggy paddling in the ocean for a year,
Yeah.
trying to just keep my head above water. And then all of a sudden you get a handle on critical analysis, you get a handle on writing Turabian, you get a handle on what the instructors are looking for in a paper. And then all of a sudden you can settle in to the student thing. And then when you've got a handle on what it is to write and do all that stuff, then the content sort of, you can absorb the content in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I would say, I don't know, maybe there's not really a point, um, but somewhere in the halfway point, somewhere where right as I'm starting my thesis, it probably felt like everything started to click in place. And it's funny because you can see that on my transcript. So I'm not going to tell you like what my grades were. I did fine, you
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
did, but I did better in the second half of my program
Sure.
because I had spent a year being a graduate student and really applying myself.
Well,
Like, oh, you become a better student in the process and not just command information in a different way. You become a better thinker, a better writer,
yeah,
a
that's good.
better analyzer of critical
Yeah,
materials, you know?
absolutely.
So, and you read a lot of that stuff too. So then that shapes the way that you think and you write is being exposed to peer reviewed material or, leadership material that's not, 60 pages that you buy at an airport bookstore, you know. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of good wisdom and information, hard fought wisdom in those books.
Yeah.
But if you're really looking at stuff that's empirically validated, peer-reviewed, people that have spent their entire careers thinking about the practices of leadership or ministry, you're exposed to just higher level thinking, and whoop, that'll challenge you, man. So
Because I think you hit that place in your journey of life of like it clicks, and then you just start to see the snowballs, and the lens, the viewpoint of what you see is like, okay, man, like I can see it now. So like ultimately, with that being said, when you're still in ministry, the light bulbs clicked. Like you're starting to see that growth. Like you're putting two and two together, and ultimately, I think at the end of the day, like you graduated, we know you finished. How did that journey change you as a person?
I think there's probably three, maybe four things that this journey did for me. First thing was it gave me confidence. It gave me confidence that I could do something difficult. To stand back at the end of it, especially as one of the first two, Lance Wrench and I graduated the first year together. Nice. Yeah. So as one of the first two graduates of the program, and having completed a full thesis with empirical research and all that stuff, just said like, okay, wow, I did well in a difficult program, and I'm proud of that, and I can do hard things. I can take on big challenges. So it was just a complete confidence boost of saying I can do hard things, and now I want to do hard things, because I was still beat down from. I mean, you imagine all the things that you tell yourself, when you have the experience of failure and somewhat redemption, somewhat false starts of trying to like get things going and whatnot. And you got this nagging voice in the back of your head saying like, hey, you're a screw up. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You don't work hard enough. You don't have the right character. You whatever. And if those are the dominant voices in your head, then yeah, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he ultimately. Yeah. So I'm standing on the backside of the significant project, this thesis, saying, oh, no, I can do hard things. And I'm going to try harder things now. And the Masters gave me the confidence to be able to do that, I think. So I think that's one of the things. The other thing that I didn't realize I was going to get out of the Masters program was the relationships. So I was the new guy in town. Yeah. So I had a good reputation back home as a good musician, a funny guy, all this stuff, lots of friends. I know a ton of people. But then when I moved to Aberdeen, I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. They didn't know my gift set. They didn't know any of that stuff. Wow. And so coming to the master's degree now, looking back on it, I mean, I was in there with then current superintendents and people that are now in leadership in different areas, people that have gone on to do some significant things. Sure. And we're all suffering in those classes. Yeah. Having no idea what's going on, we're terrified. So terror has a way of bonding you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then these people just became friends. Yeah, absolutely. Not because they were high and mighty like officials at the district office, because like I didn't know anybody, Yeah. But just because they were people that were sincerely trying to grow in their craft, pursue God, and to give Trinity a chance. At the time with the graduate school, it was brand spanking new. Wow. So it was like I think about like Steve Shibley. I mean, who became a great personal friend through the program. I mean, Dwight and Nadine Sandos, Winston Titus, Randy Honey, Jordy of Nunez, Melody Scar. Like, these people just became friends, and in some cases, like family to me during that. And to go from being a guy with a network and then a new city and all that stuff, I know that the Lord has sovereignly moved through that. Wow. And I'll always be grateful, so grateful for that.
That's powerful.
Yeah, so grateful for those relationships that were developed.
So how did that change your leadership style or ministry? Like, that's maybe like the practical side of that too. What changed?
Yeah, so the most immediate way that it changed was we were small group. We were multi-role, classic small church kind of thing. So we were the associate pastors of Freedom, we were the worship pastors, and then we were the small group pastors. And when we came in, we realized that Freedom was doing evangelism well, and we were doing prophetic culture well. But we had people that were hungry to connect to one another in relationship. There were things that we were doing as a church, doing a good job of that. But we said there's an opportunity here for us to do small groups and multiply leaders because we thought that there was pastoral people,
Yep.
not pastors of church, but I
Yeah.
use pastoral in the
Gifting of
sense of
pastoral sense. Yeah, absolutely.
that were in the church that was being, it was an opportunity
Yeah.
for us to use those people effectively. So my master's degree thesis focused on small group ministry. And I went from, I literally have led a small group to now I've read 50 books about small group ministry. I'm personally connected to one of the number one scholars in the world when it comes to small group ministry, who ended up mentoring me.
Wow.
I was reading a journal article. I said, this is exactly what I'm looking for. He had his email address at the end of the journal article. I emailed him. It started a phone relationship. We met in person. He mentored me for years in small group ministry. And so we went from literally knowing next to nothing about it to being experts.
Wow.
And my approach to ministry and my approach to all this stuff is I hope I'm not too pragmatic in my stuff. Hopefully it's a theologically grounded pragmatism. But we're trying to solve a problem. I'm not interested in becoming an academic for its own sake. I want to help the church solve big, hairy problems. And so for the problem of discipleship, or the opportunity for discipleship is a better way to put it, we needed to understand the technical side of that in order to be able to produce a meaningful small group ministry that would get people in ministry deployed, have them grow as leaders, and for that to strengthen the church. So that was the most immediate impact, was the very practical thing of, I'm in charge of this, I don't know what I'm doing, and now I do know what I'm doing, and we saw the fruit going from, in a church of 125, we had almost 40 small group leaders.
Wow.
So, and we had vision, we had training, we had a whole thing, and I'm really proud of that because it just got people involved in a different way.
Yeah.
So praise the Lord.
Yeah. That's an incredible testimony of his faithfulness, and I think also just understanding that, he opens doors and connections when you allowed yourself to surrender to the journey. And I think something that's been in my heart a lot lately is like that it's an educational journey. That it's not like just taking some classes, writing some papers, and getting a diploma. Like, this is formative to who you are as a person.
Yes.
It's not just information.
Yeah.
And also understanding this greater context and concept of saying, whenever I chose to do grad school, it's me choosing to submit to a process that is refining my person.
Yeah.
And creating something inside of me that can be unshakable.
Yeah.
Because I understand it.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. So as we're kind of bringing this episode to a close, I just wanted to see if you could speak to the audience real quick, or to whoever's listening right now, and just, what would you say to someone who maybe feels called to grad school, or even, for any account, just ministry as well, but they just feel unsure? Like, what would you say to them? And then also a twofold question: what would you say to your younger self before you started this journey? What is, like, those two questions in specific? Like, how would you answer those?
Yeah. For those that are considering graduate school, I would say let the Lord lead you. Let the Lord lead you in your timing. So, for instance, I'm on my PhD program right now, about 3/4 of the way through my PhD, and I had to delay for 2 years, really because I felt like the Lord said to don't start right now.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like, let the Lord lead you. I would also say in that it's okay to take a step of faith. Like, you don't necessarily have to have this. I feel like I'm saying two different things that are almost on the opposite end of the spectrum. If you don't have to have like a burning light from heaven. I never had that moment where the Lord came down and physically spoke to me and said, "You got to go to graduate school."
Yeah, those moments are few and far between, I think. But
yeah, and I've had moments that were like, God told me to do this.
Yeah.
I'd never had that with this, but I had peace about it as I kept taking steps toward it. Yeah. And the Lord has it's hard to explain the good fruit in my life, personally, professionally, relationally, from doing it. I think in some ways, it's one of those things that for me personally, that the Lord just gave me an opportunity and said, "Are you gonna take it or you're not gonna take it?"
Yeah.
And just and I did, and it's been absolutely life changing. So, and you're right. And I'm gonna put a plug in here when something that you didn't ask, because I would encourage anybody that's considering doing a master's degree to do the thesis version.
Man, see, okay, I think that there's an incredible exchange right now of graduate schools
Yeah.
who are understanding like, oh, like you can get a master's without writing a thesis.
Right.
And I mean, I'm currently in the grad school doing a program right now, and I just had this something inside of myself that said, thesis is not optional.
Yeah.
Like, I think you're missing such a huge formative piece of that journey
Yeah.
by not being able to maintain a thought or a process or a topic for 50 pages,
Yeah.
55 pages.
Yeah.
You're losing a sense of that accomplishment.
Yeah.
And there's a challenge there that I think people just need to be willing to answer the bell on.
Yeah.
And I think this is a hot take, but I think as a culture, we've gotten lazy.
Yeah.
And we refuse to take a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add a slightly political, or maybe a whatever, to say, like, if you can't do it, do the master's and
Yeah.
don't do the thesis.
Yeah.
But something that you mentioned earlier is so powerful, that you are in a process that's changing you as a person.
Yes.
And it's not just about getting a piece of paper on your wall. It's not just about getting something that's going to open you up to a different level professionally, or positions, or
It's not a step ladder. Yeah.
it's not a step ladder.
Yeah.
You realizing that you're literally being chiseled into a different human by this process.
Yes.
And the thesis is, I would say, a full third of the value of my program was the thesis that I did. So like I said, if you can't do it, it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
But if you can do it, do it.
Yeah, that's great.
You can do it, do it.
That's great.
Submit to do the hard thing. Do the hard thing. It'll pay off.
Yeah.
It will pay off.
And dividends.
Yeah.
And dividends.
And I can't sit here and predict for each person like what it is, but just doing hard things pay off, right?
Yeah.
In general. Okay, so what would I say to my younger self? Question 2. I would say, you knucklehead, go to class and do your homework. It's the first thing I would say to myself. I would say, if I had understood a little bit more about vision and a little bit more about goals, and had taken the time to, in some ways, to give myself permission to dream about what I wanted to do. I don't think I was ready to even answer what I wanted to do. I was just content to play guitar. And then all of a sudden, the Lord started to bring me into a place of, just as a person, probably in my mid-20s, where there's more. I don't know how to go back and give my young self the ability to dream and to build. But if I could, I would. Because I think that would have saved me a million heartaches when it comes to aimlessness, lack of purpose. Saying, why am I going to plant biology class today? I didn't understand the why of any of that stuff. And I don't know. I don't know how I could have done that, because I'm a big why person. It's like, don't just tell me what to do. Tell me why I'm doing it, because I want to understand the big picture of things. Yeah. So grad school was perfect in that sense, as an analytical person.
Sure.
But so I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what I could have said to myself at a younger age. Maybe this is gonna sound weird, but it's everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
There's some dark moments associated with the failure in my life earlier, but to say it's okay, the Lord's got you in process. Yeah. And this is gonna turn out good. And even though failure, as embarrassing as it was a really defining feeling for a long time, that failure has led to good things because of God's faithfulness. So
Failure. I think sometimes we have this conception that failure is, to be almost kind of like a buzzword, but failure is final. But that's not true. I think we can allow failure to form us. And it sounds like that's what you did. And to hear your story, of how you used that as fuel. To say, I'm posting these transcripts on a board, and I'm telling my younger self, hey, it's going to be okay. How much different would grad school have been if you hadn't failed?
it might have just been another achievement, something that filled a hole in my life.
Excuse me.
It might have just become another thing to try to make myself feel better about myself, or you know. But yeah. But it was more than that, you know. The theological sort of counterpoint to all that stuff is that there's nothing that I could do that is really going to replace the way that the Lord feels about me because of who I am in Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then all of a sudden, with a better understanding of my identity in Christ and a better relationship, a stronger relationship with the Lord, all of a sudden the world is my oyster.
Yeah, absolutely.
To say, now I get to do stuff for Jesus. Yeah. Now I get to pursue a PhD. And it's not so that I'll feel good about Reverend Dr. Matthew Kyle Payne at the end of the day. Lord willing, I finish, you know. But it's just like, no, I legitimately want to help the church. And I'm in a better position to be able to do that with a master's degree and a doctorate degree based on what the Lord's called me to do.
Yeah.
So, and then it's just fun.
The PhD is fun.
It's so fun.
Look, man, that seems like such a daunting task. But
it's so fun.
You're the man for the job. So, well, hey, Matt, I want to say a big thank you for coming on the episode today. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for speaking openly and honestly about your journey. It's been very impactful for me. I got like a bug in my throat for some reason. It's just not wanting to go
Let
away.
it out, man. Hack it up. Right in the microphone.
Yeah, probably not. Hoy. Anyways. All right. Well, to my listeners, I just want to say that if there's something in this conversation that's resonated with you, if there's something that Matt has said that you just feel that tension inside of yourself between calling, uncertainty, I feel like I need to take a next step. My ministry either feels stagnant or I feel stagnant, or there's just like this piece of myself that I just can't seem to unlock, then I hope this is proof that you're not alone. And growth starts by taking a step. And like Matt said earlier, there wasn't this big booming voice, but oftentimes if you just start taking steps, if you listen to our last episode, Dr. Carroll talked about reading a book, listening to a podcast, do something to help sharpen yourself. That doesn't always mean grad school. That can just mean, hey, I need a different tool and a different toolbox to start taking those steps. But I encourage you to do that today. However, if you want to explore what your next step would look like to do grad school, come check us out at Trinity Bible College and Graduate School. We would love to help you get started on your educational journey. With that being said, thank you for joining us on Formation, Faith, and Culture, a theological conversation, and we'll catch you on the next episode.